Something most cherished here in Canada is the ability to peacefully demonstrate against government restrictions and impositions. Yet for some reason, 3 Albertans now could face 10 years in prison for their alleged involvement in a peaceful demonstration. And that's why you see this billboard we got behind us. Well, you have to go to truckerdefensefund.ca because we want to show everybody around this area, around the Lethbridge area, who these men are. The men who now face mischief charges over $5,000 in relation to the Coutts blockade, which, as I mentioned, was one of the largest peaceful demonstrations to ever take place in the province, in conjunction with the largest demonstrations to ever take place in the country. Of course, I'm talking about the Coutts blockade, one of the largest protests Alberta has ever seen. It took place the same time as the convoy to Ottawa and lasted from January 29th to February 15th, at which point demonstrators ended the protests in order to maintain themselves as a peaceful demonstration. And right now, these 3 men have a crowdfunding initiative set up to provide free legal defense for them as they go up against the Crown. The prosecutor is expected to seek the 10-year prison punishment for these 3 men, again, for their alleged involvement in a demonstration which saw tens of thousands of participants taking decentralized blockade and demonstration actions against the government. Yet somehow the allegations of leadership have been pinned on these 3 individuals, and now consequently, each of these individuals could face 10 years in prison. But I tell you what, here at Rebel News, we still believe that Canadians should have a right to peacefully demonstrate without fears of having to spend time behind bars, simply for trying to seek a dialogue with those same people who implement the laws of the land. But this punishment now seems to be around the corner for any Albertan who decides to peacefully protest and seek to have an open dialogue with our most elitist politicians. And at Rebel News, we think there's something wrong about that, which is why we decided to crowdfund their legal defense. You guys have decided to crowdfund at truckerdefensefund.ca, sending these donations straight to the legal defense to bolster anything that these guys need to defend themselves before the Crown. If you go to truckerdefensefund.ca, you'll see that donation link on the side, along with a petition that we're going to hand off to our new premier, Danielle Smith, who got the job because of these same demonstrations forcing the former premier to accept a resignation upon low support within his own party.
Vaccine passports for those individuals unwilling to be vaccinated.
Opposed. And we've been very clear from the beginning that we will not facilitate or accept vaccine passports.
Decided to adopt the restriction exemption program, a proof of vaccination program for participation in certain discretionary activities that have a higher risk of viral transmission.
So if you think we should drop off that petition, sign your name, and we're going to make sure Danielle Smith sees just how many people think that allegedly being part of peaceful demonstrations shouldn't lend you 10 years in prison. And on top of that, if you think that's not enough, you can send Danielle Smith a direct email.
As for the amnesty, I have to get some legal advice on that. And so I've already asked my staff to request that advice so I can see how we would be able to proceed on that. My view has been that these were political decisions that were made, and so I think that they can be political decisions to offer a reversal. But I do want to get some legal advice on that first.
On top of all that, we've decided to get a billboard in the Lethbridge area because we want people to see that these men are not the terrorist extremists that the government and mainstream media has alleged them to be. These are the salt of the earth Canadians that you would expect to see within your own family. And what were they doing that was so bad? The answer is nothing. They were present at one of the largest national demonstrations to ever take place in the country. And for some reason, these 3 men, Alex, Marco, and George, are now facing the potential of being added to the list of the multitude of Albertans that have had to spend time behind bars because of the implementation of some of the most draconian vaccine mandates and COVID restrictions we've seen across the world. And right now, we've got a billboard going for these 3 men, Alex, Marco, and George, because we think that there needs to be awareness of what's going on. There needs to be a lifting of the veil the government is cast on peaceful demonstrators across this country. And we want to show the world who these 3 men really are. The salt of the earth Canadians you would know and expect to see within your own family. And that's why you see this billboard we got behind us. Well, you have to go to truckerdefensefund.ca because we want to show everybody around this area, around the Lethbridge area, who these men are, the men who now face mischief charges over 5,000 in relation to the Coutts blockade, which, as I mentioned, was one of the largest peaceful demonstrations to ever take place in the province, in conjunction with the largest demonstrations to ever take place in the country. These decentralized blockades and protests were the result not of a key organizer, a key leader in the shadows. No, that is what the government is trying to allege with these three men. They're trying to send them to prison for 10 years. But I'll tell you who the leader is. The leader of this movement was Justin Trudeau. He was the key participant. He was the one who had millions of Canadians fed up and done with the government restrictions that have destroyed their lives for the past 2 years.
We know the way through this pandemic is by getting everyone vaccinated. And the overwhelming majority, close to 90% of Canadians, have done exactly that. The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
And yet for some reason, Alex, Marco, and George are the ones who have to spend 10 years in prison, again, for their alleged involvement in a peaceful demonstration. And if you want to help them out, you want to spread the awareness that these guys could spend 10 years behind bars for their alleged being key participants of the Coutts blockade, their alleged involvement in general, well, you got to go to truckerdefensefund.ca. If you want to help Alex, Marco, and George, the three individuals who've now been charged with mischief over $5,000, well, they need your help right now. And if you want to help prevent them from going to jail for 10 years, as the prosecutor is expected to aim for, well, you've got to go to truckerdefensefund.ca.